But yeah, Legolas wasn't actually in the book either.
Yeah.
They just added him because Orlando Bloom, right?
I know, and also when you watch that movie, you're like, from what I remember, Orlando Bloom is not that much of a badass in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like he's not like, yeah. We'll get into the second movie, but
we're all over the place with it.
just to sum, I like what they did with that whole. They show the relationship between the two different, the elves and the dwarves, because it's something that can be replicated in real life. All right, guys, welcome back to the Way Podcast. We are live. Okay, we'll start again.
No, we're keeping it in.
No. All right, guys, welcome back. Again, we're in a different setup like every episode because I don't have a studio or anything like that.
I think this is the studio from now on.
Yeah,
this is the studio.
Guess where we are, guys. Guess where we are. If you haven't been to my house already, the 10 people watching this already know all of them. But it's okay.
Looks like a hostage taker's basement.
Yeah. Beck is back, and we had a lot of fun last episode talking about just movies in general. And today we wanted to dedicate a whole episode just on The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
We'll see. We may even get 2 episodes out of this.
Yeah, I think we're gonna start off with The Hobbit.
Yeah.
And then we'll, because most recent, technically before.
It's prequels.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll start off. What was your experience with, like, before you watched the Hobbit stuff? What was your experience with the whole, like, Lord of the Rings world and stuff?
So before the whole Lord of the Rings thing, I was a sci-fi kid. So none of that fantasy stuff for nerds.
Yeah, that's for real.
Oh,
nerds.
how I've changed. But no, I saw the movies when I was younger. So there's that. And I thought they were good movies.
Mm-hmm.
They were a little long. The first time I saw Fellowship of the Ring, and it ended on the cliffhanger where they run into the jungle away from the orc army. I'm like, what was that ending? But no, I thought they were good movies. Again, I'll have to go back and watch them. But yeah, no, I thought they were good. Never watched the Hobbit movies before this experience, which was interesting and very different.
Yeah. So for me, when I was a kid, that was probably my favorite movie of all time. Seeing the original trilogy of Lord of the Rings, like, I don't know, hundreds of times at this point. Watch it. It's like a whole thing. We have the whole DVD set over there in the corner, covered in dust.
Director's cut?
Yeah, not that we have all, like, behind the scenes everything too. We never watched them, but we watched the 4 hours of extended content that you get with it. So
my roommate at school, he has the director's cut of all 3 of them.
How's that? It must be like, how's that? It must be longer than the 4 hours or whatever.
It's. Let me look up. I want to say each of them are like 3 hours and 30 minutes long.
Yeah, because even with the extended version, it's 3 hours. So the first one's 3 hours, second one's 3.5, last one's 4.5 hours. So
let me look it up. I'm looking at it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. The base versions of it.
Base versions are 2.5 hours.
Yeah,
that's a base.
No. The Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, is 3 hours long. 2 hours. Well, 2 hours 15 minutes. 2 towers. Is it 2 hours or 3 towers? No, 2 towers.
Yeah.
Same length. And the Return of the King is 3 hours and 21 minutes. Base version.
Yeah. So they're long as hell, and So I've watched the extended versions, of course, and the best thing of what they do with the extended versions, because they know no one's got time to watch a 4-hour movie straight. Like the extended version for the first one is 3.5, and then so they add a half hour for the first and second, and then for the last movie it's literally an hour extra of content, and it's phenomenal. You watch it in 2 sittings. Like, you don't watch it in, like, it's like a weekend thing. You can't binge that trilogy in a day if you want to, see the outside. According
to Reddit, someone did the math on the original 3 movies, the extended cuts. Sorry, there is no director cuts, they're all extended cuts. My apologies. They are collectively, between the 3 of them, 11 hours, 23 minutes, and 59 seconds.
Yeah. 3 movies, by the way.
So you want to do so we got to do at some point the Hobbit extended cuts and the Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah, I haven't even seen the extended cuts for the Hobbit.
One sitting.
Yeah, that's
one sitting.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. That's 24 hours.
That's a lot of content,
dude. That's a full day, that's for sure.
It actually is a full day.
So yeah, so I've always been a fan. Always been a fan of the story. I watched the movies first, and then I read The Hobbit, and I read Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. I haven't read The Return of the King. I've never been big into the fantasy reading, just in general, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was always more nonfiction, but yeah, Lord of the Rings. It means the movies mean a lot to me. I love the score, the characters, all that kind of stuff. I was obsessed with it as a kid, and I still love it a lot now. So today's part, we're gonna focus on The Hobbit, which was released.
I'll pull up the dates.
Well, it was released 2012. First one, Unexpected Journey.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up.
And
They came out 1 year after another, so it's soon 2012 to 15.
Yeah, 2014 I think was the last.
No, sorry.
2012, 13, 14. Yeah,
2014. Yeah.
And
Yeah. 13,
they were. Okay, so I rewatched the last one, the first one, last night. And overall, The Hobbit, in terms of the book, has a very different feel to Lord of the Rings as a book.
Mm-hmm.
Just even the whole vibe of it. The Hobbit, when I read it, it's more of a children's kind of whimsical tale.
Mm.
And the Lord of the Rings is I don't know.
Fantasy novel.
Yeah, it's a proper. It wasn't meant for adults because they're it was hard to make a fantasy book back in the 50s when it came out for adults, but it kind of became that because Tolkien, when he wrote it, he wrote all these books for his kids, and it was basically for different stages in their life because they released that book 20 years after, right after The Hobbit, and The Hobbit. I mean, the movies in general, I think to most people, they're decent. They're decent movies. They got big battles, cool story. It's connected to Lord of the Rings, one of the best trilogies of all time. I think we should go about it looking at the different movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have you seen up until the last one yet?
Okay,
or
so
no?
I had never read the books before, so
Yeah.
this is completely new to me. I watched one night back to back to back. I watched first night. I watched The Hobbit: The Unexpected Journey for the first time. No idea what was going to happen.
Okay.
Then we watched Desolation of Smaug the next night with my family, and then I watched Battle of the Five Armies the night after that, and that was last night. So I'm fresh off the movies.
Yeah. 1 second. Okay. Yeah, just
Alright.
making sure we're still recording.
Perfect.
But yeah. So we're gonna start with our, I guess, casual review of the first. So, it's the thing with The Hobbit in general is how it's originally was a book that was maybe 400 to 500 pages, maybe less, and it's been split up into 3 different films. That's one thing. At first, because I read the book just before the movie had come out, because I heard it was coming out, and I was like, I'll just read it. The fastest I've ever read a long book. Probably read it in a few days.
Didn't have to read that fast, turns out.
Yeah. Because I watched them and oh, they just stopped at the battle on the trees, and they're on fire, and then, yeah. And, the first movie, I felt was fine, it was...
It's a little rough.
It was alright.
It's not that great.
It's something you need to watch just to have context with the next movie.
Yeah.
But the whole...
It's long.
Yeah, it's really long for what it is.
Yeah.
It's the first act of the book, which is because the book doesn't really have a kind of structure.
No.
I haven't read it in a while, but it doesn't really have that kind of first act, second act, third act. It's more of one thing going on the entire time. And it was basically, they're trying to make it as the first act where they're just before they go into, they travel to Mirkwood, I think. Right?
Yeah.
At the end of the first?
At the end of the first movie, they basically close out with them fighting at the cliffside with the tree, as you said. The Eagles take them off to the hill. Thor and Oakenshield, basically what happens to him is he is brought back to life.
No spoilers.
Or healed by a Gandalf.
Yeah.
And then after they kind of end, and then the second movie picks up right after that, and they're going through the jungle, and the Orc pack is still chasing them, and then they meet the Shape Changer, and then go to the Mirkwood. So yeah, basically.
Yeah, so one thing I thought was a smart thing done by Peter Jackson when they adapted the book. In the book, they didn't have any reason, specific reason that Gandalf left.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of because I was watching a video essay on it. earlier today. They're talking about like Gandalf when Tolkien wrote it at the beginning of Lord of the Rings or the Silmarillion. Sorry, he has like a whole letter of how he wrote the Lord of the Rings. And basically, he's saying he used that as a plot piece to get Gandalf away from them, just to go like the necromancer thing was like a whole side story that didn't really matter in the book, but they connected it because the Hobbit was released. The movies were released after Lord of the Rings. People are expecting it to connect, but originally it was it came first, so it had really no connection other than Bilbo is Frodo's uncle, and he has the ring. Basically, no other connection.
Yeah.
And he's so I like the whole thing where they're bringing up Sauron. His spirit is in Dol Guldur or whatever, the necromancer. I kind of like that. A lot of people don't like that. I felt like it's a better reason than just having some random thing to get him away from the scene.
I thought so. The first movie, again, as I said, is kind of rough. I think there are a lot of scenes in that movie that really felt like they should have been extended cut or director's cut material.
Yeah.
Like the scenes where they're at his home. There's a lot
like
of stuff.
The first 20 minutes of prologue.
The first 20, there's quite a few minutes there that really should have been shaved down off the movie.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing. That plot line, at least, again, I haven't read the books. That plot line with the whole necromancer and Sauron, honestly, in that first movie is probably the most interesting part of that movie.
Yeah.
It's really, it has a lot of mystery around it. It's well done. It fits the fantasy theme, and it really ties into the overall plot in the sense that it's part of the continuous story that progresses throughout the trilogy.
Yeah.
Where I felt a lot of the stuff in that first movie, it's not. They don't do a good job establishing the characters because some of the characters' names aren't even said throughout that first movie.
Yeah.
And not a lot happens other than we learn about the kind of situation with Thorin and the orcs, and that's pretty much all that happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's why Thorin's like the most interesting character out of all the dwarves. Him and Balin, right? They're the only ones with an actual backstory.
Yeah.
I mean, later Fili and Kili, you see more of them, and then in the later movies, but I feel like they did an okay job at capturing that kind of whimsical kind of nature because Lord of the Rings is a lot more serious.
I disagree with the whimsical nature thing.
A little bit too serious.
Well, no, I think in the first one, at least the first movie, the beginning definitely has the whimsical nature. We're in the Shire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The moment they get captured with the trolls, that tone flips real quick.
Yeah, it's not really I mean, okay, the trolls kind of are they kind of give you that a little. I find they gave it a little bit of that where they're like, they're all stupid, making like jokes and stuff. But I don't know. The whole movie is a little. I think it felt like the pacing was a little weird because the battles were really. I mean, the battles were really long.
In the first one, or just in general?
I mean, in the first one, because that in the book they get to Mirkwood pretty fast, right? They go through the mountain, they get the Goblin King thing, which is fine. Like that's where he gets the ring. That's an important part.
Yeah,
of the...
that was a cool scene where he actually gets it from Gollum. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, because originally, apparently in the first edition of the book, before the Lord of the Rings came out, there was actually a different scenario. So Smeagol was an or whatever Smeagol, Gollum, whatever you call him. He wasn't actually sinister in the Hobbit. He was actually just some creature. They played the riddle game, and he just gave him the ring.
Oh.
But what they did when he's writing the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien was like, he plays a major part as a sinister character in Lord of the Rings. How am I going to connect that? So he actually updated the book and changed the whole dialogue. So where it's like he doesn't want him to, he's not actually playing a fair game, and he's going to kill him anyway, right?
Yeah.
And that was a cool scene, the whole riddle scene. It really captured that kind of feel of the Hobbit, because the Hobbit has a lot more. The Lord of the Rings feels like if it wasn't about orcs and a magical ring, like it could be replicated in a real life event, like in medieval times. You know what I mean?
The Witch King too.
The Witch King, like.
But we'll get into that. From what I remember, that was a really cool part of the first movie with the Nazgul and the Ring Wraiths.
Dude, the Ring Wraiths are the sickest.
We'll talk about it.
We're going to get to Lord of the Rings later. Okay, we have to stay streamlined. Okay, so throughout the movie, it's the pacing is a little odd. Like it's very, some parts is really slow. I like the prologuing and exposition of like learning about Thorin. right? Because if you haven't read the books, you don't know anything about these characters. They're just this guy, these dwarves being thrust upon you. And I think they do a decent job at capturing the whole, our homeland has been taken from us and we're there to reclaim it, you know?
No, for sure.
And the relation, because in in Lord of the Rings, there's always a tension between Gimli and Legolas, right?
Yeah, you get that one part in the second movie where they
That was
go capture the
hilarious.
dwarves, and he's like, "Who's this ugly bastard?"
He's
like,
that's
like Gimli.
That was a hit. That
Yeah,
was a good.
That was a good.
That was a good bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Legolas wasn't actually in the book either.
Yeah.
They just added him because Orlando Bloom, right?
I know, and also when you watch that movie, you're like, from what I remember, Orlando Bloom is not that much of a badass in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like he's not like. Yeah, we'll get into the second movie, but
we're all over the place.
just to sum, I like what they did with that whole. They show the relationship between the two different, the elves and the dwarves, because it's something that can be replicated in real life.
That's the second movie.
No, even in the first one, they have like the
the high elves, right? Yeah.
They're from
the wood elves.
Yes, and you see the relationship. Obviously, it gets further expanded on in Desolation of Smaug.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think overall the first movie, solid 6 to 7, maybe.
It's like a 5 or a 6 for me.
Yeah,
it's kind of just okay.
Yeah. Now, okay, we'll move on. I know we only spent like 15 minutes on that, but okay.
Perfect. We're
Yeah.
getting the good ones.
All right, so now we get into the second movie, Desolation of Smaug.
This one's really good. I really like the second one.
Yeah, second one.
It picks up.
It's it's actually once they're in Mirkwood, that's where a lot of stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing with the spiders and that was pretty cool. Where they get captured.
They get captured a lot in those movies.
They get captured like all the time.
The entire first act of
they get captured 2 times.
The first movie they get captured like I want to say twice. The second movie they get captured right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then hang on a second. What else do they get captured? They get captured.
I think it's only twice in the second.
Nope,
movie.
they get captured in the second movie when they go to Lake Town.
Oh yeah, Lake Town. Yeah.
So that's 4. Yeah, that's pretty much it. They get captured 4 times in the 2 movies, so it's a lot. And Gandalf basically saves them from everything in the first movie, and then
Bilbo picks up the slack in the other ones.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
So we start out. We end up at the front of Mirkwood, and then Gandalf has to leave again.
Yeah, to go to Dol Guldur.
Which was pretty.
Not there.
The tomb.
He goes to the tomb where the ring wraiths' bodies were originally buried, right?
Yeah, which was a pretty sick scene. I actually like that.
Oh yeah, that was so cool.
Yeah, where he goes into the mountain. Because really, like, the thing everyone loves about Lord of the Rings and all this is so much lore and actual history going on within the universe. And it doesn't really get expanded on unless you read into the books. And, that's not everyone's cup of tea. Reading, he has countless books on just the history of Middle-earth. And, just delving deeper into what happened before Lord of the Rings, before The Hobbit, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I always found kind of odd, it's like, if it's been 3,000 years since, like, the world was created, don't you think there'd be some more development in technology? That's what I always thought. It's like, I mean, they got gunpowder in in Lord of the Rings. What?
Wow.
Yeah, they're like, no. I mean, whatever.
They have magic wizards. Why would you need guns?
Who needs guns? Yeah, exactly. You got Gandalf who can just like, oh, you're hurting a little bit. I'll wake you up.
Yeah, you have Lady Galadriel who sends Sauron back to the Shadow Realm.
Yeah.
The third movie?
Yeah, OP, man.
OP. I thought I didn't know what she was, but like I thought she was like some crazy lich after like with the shot where she gets all like gone and stuff like that. I was like, oh my lord. But I don't know. We'll talk about.
Yeah, so Dol Guldur, cool scene. I like how they added Radagast.
Oh, the tomb was cool.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Mirkwood, they're traveling through, but they captured the spider scene. Just the fights.
Oh, that's 5. They get captured by the spiders.
Yeah, the spiders. Yeah. That was pretty cool. I mean, the Lake Town part was actually like I enjoyed that part as well.
Yeah, we should probably talk about the elves before we talk about.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, they go from Mirkwood to the elves.
Yeah, they're saved by the elves
to Lake Town.
Or they're not. They're just saved by the elves.
Well, they're kind of going nuts in the forest. The spiders gonna get them. Bilbo saves them from the spiders, and the spiders have to kill them all. And then the wood elves show up and are like, "You're invading the forest," and they have a conversation about all these. Yeah. No. Yeah. Wait,
Yeah.
did we count them getting captured? Oh, no, we didn't count them getting captured by the Wood Elves. Never mind. But yeah, they get saved. It's a good scene.
Yeah, and then the whole thing with the Wood Elves, and then we have to talk about the one big problem with this movie and the next movie: the love interest.
I didn't. Okay,
Was mega cringe.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was. I assumed it was in the original book because I'm like, it seems like such a.
Yeah. I mean, okay,
it could have been worse.
I mean, it was fine in the second movie. It was fine.
Yeah, it was okay.
Right, because it wasn't so developed.
Yeah.
But I understand they have to add they wanted a little bit of representation. There's not even a single female character mentioned in the original Hobbit.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I understand they want to add it. They're already adding so many different things. You might as well add another female character. And I like how they expand on Thranduil, because he was kind of like a nothing, random, powerful guy that they just don't like in the book, and they somehow get through the forest. I can't remember how it.
And you mean after they escape from him?
Yeah, like
the York Pack's chasing them when they jump in barrels and go fly down the river.
Yeah, because in the book, Thranduil is like, he's not really a character in there. He's just kind of like there.
Rich evil guy.
Yeah, and they kind of expand on the relationship between the dwarves and the elves a little bit even more, right? And okay, the best part of that movie was once they reached the Lonely Mountain, the whole thing with Smaug was so good.
So cool.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
It was Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That was he was Smaug. And there's a video of him. He's just like, they're doing the motion capture for it. So he's literally on the ground like this.
Slithering around.
Yeah, and he's like he said he went to the zoo to observe how reptiles like move and stuff, which is, it's kind of like commending him as an actor, and also it's kind of funny. It's like some guy watching these lizards move. He's like, I got a copy of that.
Yeah. We skipped over Lake Town again.
Oh yeah, we skipped over that. Okay, Lake Town was sick too. Like,
it was good.
Because it gave the whole thing about Lord of the Rings it's like the Trinity with the different races and stuff.
Humanity's not really in a lot of them. If you think about how much time humanity spends, they're not a prominent figure. Like the elves and dwarves are really the elves have always been the focus, kind of. I feel like in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I mean it depends, because Lord of the Rings, they made it more men focused.
Yeah, for sure. Like especially the third movie with Gondor, but the Hobbit movies were very.
It's about the dwarves.
Dwarves and the elves.
Dwarves and the elves. The conflict between that, and then the men are kind of involved, just.
Humanity, because they have to be there.
Yeah, and they're there. They were in Dale beforehand, so yeah, they're like the remnants of Dale. But the whole thing, the king was funny. He had his little minion with him. It was a nice little side plot.
Yeah, it was nice and funny.
Because Bard in the book is just there. Like, he appears, he's there. They meet him in the town, and then he just kills the dragon. Like there's no there's no other character development and stuff. So I'm glad they gave him actual screen time, and you learn more about him, the legend of his family and stuff, and the whole Black Arrow thing.
Yeah, that seems the scene. I know it's technically bleeding into the third movie, but I think the whole plot with him and his family, and that relationship with the dwarves was actually pretty interesting all around. I thought him having his heroic moment where he actually goes and fights Smaug, that was a great moment.
Yeah.
I thought again, Lake Town was great. The characters were all pretty interesting.
It was a nice kind of filler point.
It was different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good.
Because it brought us back. Because the movie was pretty serious up until there's no really joking parts except for that the barrels. That was kind of comical.
And even then, they're being chased down by an orc pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Honestly, that barrel scene was really cool.
It was pretty dope.
It totally captured the fun and stupid
fantasy.
Fantasy element, with also being developing the plot. And the same thing with Lake Town is just seeing the interactions between the different races of people in Middle Earth and stuff. And it was a nice kind of. It's okay, we're gonna take a break from the action and let's develop the story and the characters a bit more, learn more about the side characters. And then we move on after that point. Somebody, I think. Oh yeah, then the orc pack follows them to Lake Town.
Oh yeah, and Legolas and the elf woman?
I forgot her name.
Tauriel.
Tauriel, yeah.
They go fight the orc pack in the town secretly.
That was actually
that was a great fight.
And then Philly, I think it was Philly. or Killy, one of those guys, they got poisoned and had to
Yeah.
stay back.
Keely. So what happens is in the movie, they do that whole thing. Then they go talk to the master of the town, the evil, corrupt leader, and they're like, and Thorin
Capitalist.
says, like, look, I'll give you guys some money if you guys help us out and get us up to the mountain. And they're like, okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Orc pack shows up. They fight for a little bit, but before, when they're going down the river and all the barrels, Keely gets shot by an arrow that's been poisoned, and
Yep.
so he's dying. So the elf woman who he's in love with stays behind
Yep.
to heal him.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then everyone else kind of goes up the mountain, and then we start the main plot where Smaug actually shows up. And then we kind of also learn a little bit about the plot that's going on with Thorin, and he's kind of becoming more corrupt and focused on the greed and the money that's actually stored within
versus
the mines.
actually reclaiming it.
Yeah, and the kingdom, and he just focused on that monetary value and the symbolism of it all, rather than being a leader for his people. So we kind of start that plot line.
Almost, yeah, and then it kind of, I like how it plays into him fulfilling, almost becoming what his father became, his grandfather became.
His father dies in the battle against the orcs at the beginning of the first movie.
No, that was his grandfather.
What was his father?
So his father, remember they said like he was like sickened with grief. He's sickened with grief, and he went missing. They couldn't find him.
Oh, okay, never mind that.
So he's nothing.
He's basically dead.
Yeah, he's basically dead.
He's basically dead.
And then the whole dialogue with Smaug,
That was good.
yeah, I felt it was a little long.
No,
I felt okay,
it was fucking awesome.
yeah,
I excuse my language.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
yeah, and
He was the coolest plot device I've ever seen in a movie.
yeah, talking dragon. And the cool thing was when he disguised himself with the ring,
Oh yeah,
and he could see him,
because he could smell him.
and he could the reason he couldn't, because what actually happens, like if you want to go a little, he doesn't actually go invisible. What happens when he puts the ring on? He goes in the ring wraith world, basically the land of where all the like Sauron is. The Nazgul, that's why in Lord of the Rings they appear. You can see the bodies of the Nazgul, right? Their original king forms. So the reason why some can see him in that, like all the evil people, because they're in that world as well, right? And it's just a cool point in the movie. And then when they're devising the plan to defeat Smaug, that was
They dropped
the gold,
the hot gold on him. That was pretty cool.
and the scene where he exits, he just busts out.
He goes right through the front door.
And then he's like, the scene where he goes to destroy Dale or Lake Town. Like the ending of the movie was actually really
yeah, I
good.
know, it was a good ending. That third act of the second movie is really good.
Yeah. And then the whole movie itself was just really,
Second movie's good.
yeah, it was really good.
It was a good movie.
And
Third
then
movie.
the third movie was okay. So if you watch the first Hobbit and you're like, I don't think I want to watch the rest of these. This first one's not good. Just watch the second one. It's great, and the third one is even better. It's even better.
Depends what type of movie you're into. If you're into more of the big fantasy battles, you'll really like the third one a lot more. If you're into the small scale like journey the characters go on, you'll probably like the second one more. But I think the third one is still really good on its own.
Yeah,
merits.
yeah. So in the
Battle of
third
the Five
movie,
Armies.
Battle of the Five Armies. I remember that part in the book. That was the name of the chapter, and it was like a 60-page, 80-page chapter, like the entire
80-page chapter.
It was like a fifth of the book, and it was. So how does the third one start?
So
Smaug is heading toward
Smaug.
Lake Town.
Yeah, Smaug is heading towards Lake Town with all the humans in there. He starts torching the place. Bard gets up, gets the black arrow from his son, and he shoots the dragon down, fulfilling the thing his ancestor started all those years ago. Kills Smaug, and then at this point, Thorin and all of them realize Smaug is dead, and they go to claim all the stuff inside the mountain. At this point, Thorin has kind of become a corrupt leader of sorts.
Yeah.
Focused again on the gold. So they barricade themselves in the mountain to defend it. The kingdoms of Lake Town's been completely destroyed. And so they move up to the old city of Dale, where they're going to go ask Thorin to get their money that they believe they're owed. And then at this point, also the Wood Elves show up because inside of the mountain are some gems that are heirlooms that belong to the royal family of the Wood Elves. So they show up.
Yep.
As this is going on, Legolas and Tariel have gone off to.
They're tracking down the orc, the leader of the orc pack.
Yeah, and they go up
I forget his name,
to
Borg or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's Azog.
No, Azog's the lead. His like minion.
Oh
guy
yeah,
he
sorry,
sends.
Borg or Borg.
Something like that.
They go up to basically the borders of the Kingdom of Angmar, or the old Kingdom of Angmar, and go to the fortress where the orcs are stationed, and they see an army heading out there. And then also behind the whole, everything kind of going on here, which Gandalf knows about. We'll get into the pod LOTR, but
yeah.
They the orc army, Azog's orc army, is moving in on to secure the mountain for Sauron to gain foothold in that region and reestablish the King of Angmar, or Kingdom of Angmar. So that's kind of the setup, and then as things progress, obviously dwarves show up to assist Thorin, and they're about to fight the elves. Then the orcs show up. They start killing each other.
Oh wait, dude, we forgot about the bear plot. Remember the bear?
Oh, we'll get to that later in the second episode.
Oh.
Hank the Tank.
Dude, we forgot about Baron, the guy who turns into a bear.
The shape changer's not important.
Dude, he shows up eventually. Just letting you know.
We'll go back there. No, so that kind of happens, and then things kind of progress. The humans, elves, and dwarves. Basically, the dwarves come to fight the elves because they're about to invade their territorial homeland. Thorin says, "Fuck you! You're not getting any of my money." He doesn't say those words exactly.
Essentially, in old English terms.
Yeah, basically, he tells them, and then he's given up on his honor at this point. That's the whole thing.
Yep.
His own dwarves are kind of questioning him whether his leadership is like he's doing the right thing. Basically, all this happens. The orcs eventually show up, and so elves, humans, and dwarves all join forces. Battle ensues for a good 2 hours, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a long battle. It's basically
good.
It's like if you like a battle sequence, it's basically half the movie is a battle.
Yeah. So the orcs are going around killing everyone. Eventually, Thorin throws the crown down, realizes who he is, goes out there, and they go. And then most of the adventuring party, along with Gandalf, who shows back up, Gandalf stays behind the city. But most of the heroes from the group go to fight Azog. And then there's a cool one-on-one battle there. At the end of it all, Thorin dies. Bilbo's knocked out with the ring in his possession. Most of the dwarves that you adventure with end up dying. Tariel dies. And Legolas says...
Wait, no, Tariel's still alive, isn't she? No, Philly dies.
Philly dies.
And then Tariel's like, okay, this is where the...
Keely dies too.
Yeah, Philly, both of them die.
They both die.
Which is canon in the book.
Yeah, and then Legolas basically goes off and says, after seeing what his father did to Tariel, and the love she had for this dwarf, dwarf Keely, he says, "I can't come back. I'm gonna go off." And then at this point, his father says, "Go up to I don't remember what location it is, but he says, go find the Dunedain Ranger. His name you will not know, but he is the son of the former King of Gondor, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is Aragorn and Lord of the Rings.
So that's kind of the plot.
Yeah, that's the general gist of it. So the execution was really good in terms of
for sure.
In this film, and I think so. You can draw parallels to this and the Return of the King.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
It's obviously multiple armies banding together against one evil threat. I mean, this one's a little bit different. They kind of end up in the same spot, and then they're like, "Let's fight."
Mm-hmm. Each person's there for a different reason.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I like what they did in terms of, because in the book, the whole thing about Philly, Killy, and Thorin all dying, I think Thorin dies in the book, and I don't know, I can't remember if Philly and Killy die, but they they mention it very swiftly, they talk long about the battle, and he describes all this stuff going on, and it's more about the actual journey than the battle. So the battle is a very small part of it. Which is kind of funny, right? Yeah, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Thorin dies." It's kind of like that at the end of the book, and
he's kind of the main. Because the thing is in the book, Bilbo is the protagonist. But
in the movie, it's Thorin and Bilbo kind of share the spotlight in terms of the main characters, and he basically. I like what they did. They extended that because Thorin is one of my favorite characters in that whole thing because he's like the leader of the group per se, and he's got so much weight behind what he has to do, and then when he dies at the end, it just caps off his sacrifice to reclaim his old land, right?
No, for sure.
And the whole thing with Azog was a nice villain.
He did his job. I wasn't.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He wasn't like he was. Okay, his whole character design was a little like
he had one arm. That was basically his design.
That was his whole identity, and
the white orc.
Yeah, I mean, okay, he was fine. He
got the job done.
Yeah, he was a guy there to try and kill
Thorin.
And yeah, and in this part, we didn't really talk too much about it in this, but in this movie, this is when you realize that the Necromancer is Sauron. In this movie, you find out from Gandalf
too,
and he's captured. Gandalf was captured by Azog.
We should double back.
Yeah,
let's talk about this from the beginning. So basically, what happens is the side plot going on with this is Radagast, one of the wizards, basically finds that the forest has been poisoned, so he goes up to Dol Guldur and realizes up there was some spirits of the actual Nazgul and the Ring Wraiths, and then collects a sword from there, and then also believes there is a necromancer that has taken up
refuge or whatever, yeah.
And so Christopher Lee's character doesn't really think it's too serious. Gandalf eventually goes and checks it out and realizes the spirit there is actually Sauron himself, who is trying to gain a foothold in the area. So he's captured, but tells Radagast to go get help. And basically, is it Illidan? Or the one who cuts off Sauron's finger originally, in the original
Isildur.
Isildur. Yeah. So he shows up with Lady Galadriel and Christopher Lee. And basically it kind of.
Oh, you mean Elrond? You mean Elrond?
Yeah.
Isildur cut the finger off, but Elrond shows up. He was there at the same time.
Yeah. So basically,
the whole gang.
They all show up. They fight Sauron. Sauron's just a badass. Like, he literally isn't even there in a physical form, and he is still just destroying them.
Yeah, he's like, I'm destroying you with this mind of mine.
The Nazgul. It was just such a cool sequence, and it's something that realistically doesn't take a lot of plot in the movie, but it's a really fun story.
Yeah, a nice side plot to connect the whole thing to Lord of the Rings, essentially, because they have to do that as The Hobbit, being made after the Lord of the Rings.
It also makes a lot more sense if you think of how Azog gained so much strength. It's like, oh, Sauron's backing him up. So.
It's like, why do the orcs have been gone for hundreds and hundreds of years? It's like they decide to just show up now.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, it was pretty sick side plot there. And overall, the last movie, nice big battle.
Oh yeah.
Conclusion of the trilogy. Honestly, the only part that deserves a whole movie is kind of the last one, because it's the only really big part. Like, I feel like originally it was supposed to be 2 movies. I think that would have made more sense. Like, they could have produced a lot of stuff in the first one.
Yeah.
And they could have amalgamated into 2 long. They're both. All the movies are at least 2.5 hours. The first one's 2 hours and 50 minutes, and it gets longer and longer every movie.
I feel like, if I'm being honest, the first movie was the only. I felt the second and third movie, lengthwise, I felt they covered their ground well.
That's
I
fair.
felt the space was filled. I think they were in a really bad spot where there probably wasn't enough to work with the first movie, but the second and third one, I felt they were well paced.
Yeah. The second and third one were. I mean, the first one was just. It was okay. It was we got to introduce this to an audience that hasn't read the book. We can't assume anything. They probably watched Lord of the Rings. That's where they're watching this.
I think they could have, to fill out the plot of the first one, cut out some stuff necessarily in town with Thorin and Bilbo, and maybe put up a couple extra scenes of Gandalf and Radagast doing at least some research about who the Necromancer is, maybe, and done that, and then have Gandalf play out things like they do in the second movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just to fill that runtime out with some more meaningful content and really expand on that plot line, because in the first movie they really only touch on it for one scene, maybe 2 scenes if you count the conversation Lady Galadriel has with Gandalf and all them. But I don't know. I enjoyed them overall. They were good movies.
Yeah, overall worth a watch. If you're listening to this and you just got the whole thing spoiled for you, just watch it anyway. There's still good movies.
Watching.
I mean, I've seen these movies multiple times. Lord of the Rings. I know what happens at the end of every movie. They're still great movies.
No, for sure.
Now, We're about 37 minutes in.
Oh, perfect. We have more time. I thought we had way less time. Okay, we can keep going.
No, we're good. Okay, so now we can move on. I think we can move on to Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I have not watched those movies in a decade.
Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe not.
Yeah, no.
I mean, we could. Yeah, maybe we can do another time on it, or
I don't know. I want to talk to you actually about the lore of Lord of the Rings because I looked some stuff up.
Okay, yeah, we'll move on to the lore.
Okay, because what happened was I was curious because they don't really touch on it in the first Hobbit movies at all. I don't know if they touch on Lord of the Rings, but I was looking into like what Sauron actually is, and then like what the actual like the Wraiths are, and the Nazgul and the Witch King and Angmar, and I thought that stuff was pretty cool. Like,
yeah, as someone who because a lot of people, there's different levels of people who watch the Lord of the Rings and all the whole Middle Earth series, right? There's people who watch it because they just like a cool movie, and the people who watch it because they like a cool movie, and they also want to they learn more about the universe. Mm-hmm. And the Lord of the Rings, it's more like the Tolkien lore because like he has so many other things going on. Tolkienverse? Yeah, Tolkienverse, basically.
Yes.
But yeah, Lord of the Rings is smart that way, where they didn't touch on the lore that much. They just gave you enough to understand what's going on in that movie. Because that's the problem with a lot of fantasy movies trying to get big box office success, is that they go too deep into the lore for people who probably don't care that much. And Lord of the Rings did a really good job of that, where they're like, this could just be a movie on its own. Like, it couldn't have had any other relationship towards it.
They didn't have a lot of... In that first Lord of the Rings... In those Lord of the Rings movies, they did not have a lot of time to work with either, because those movies are jam-packed, from what I remember.
Yeah, there's always something going on, and, I mean, they basically replicated it directly from the book. They just cut out Tom Bombadil, which is kind of irrelevant. And the end conversation was, like, in the book was way too long. It was, like, 50 pages of it, at least. I remember. It was so long, and they only reduced it down to, like, whatever, 20 minutes in the movie. But, yeah, so the lore of that whole universe is really interesting. I've read... Okay, so when it comes to the books, I've read The Hobbit, first two of Lord of the Rings. The last Lord of the Rings book is just so long. I have to commit a whole summer to read that 800-page book.
800?
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry, not 800. 680 or something like that.
Yeah, like, real difference.
Yeah, it's not that much. And the font is tiny on that, and the book is like that. But yeah, I read that. I've read. He wrote a short story of something else that is not related. But I read Coolervo. That was a short story, and then the Silmarillion. That's really the prequel to Lord of the Rings. I wish they made a movie about this. They made an old animated movie back in the 70s about the Silmarillion. Silmarillion is a prequel to Sauron, essentially, which is, there's this guy, it starts out basically the creation of the entire universe.
It's a primordial being, isn't he, Sauron? So,
Sauron originally was an elf.
Really?
Yeah. And in the Silmarillion, I read only half of it. I stopped halfway through, and then I didn't pick up the book again for forever. But essentially, the overall story is the universe is created by these, they're called the Maiar, and basically they're the gods of the universe, essentially. And there's a few different ones. I can't remember all the names, but there's there's two different kinds. There's like the super pure one, who's like the leader of everyone, and there's Morgoth. Morgoth is the bad guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell his name is Morgoth.
Yeah, and
you can just
Mordor.
Yeah, so Morgoth, and then there's another guy who has like a hammer, and he made. So they just tell you about the origin of all these different, like, the people, the different elves, right? There's the high elves who live with Galadriel and the and that area of Middle Earth, and then there's the wood elves, and then there's the one from Rivendell. So there's 3 separate different elves, and it really delves deep into that. And it's basically the first struggle that ever happened in Middle Earth, in the first age. Because Lord of the Rings takes place in the third age, which is like, whatever, 3,000 years later. And they start out, basically the creation of the universe, they give you a lot of basis on that, where all these kind of like their customs come from, like this guy, he created these, these hairy creatures or whatever, and then the leader got mad at him and he told him to stamp him down, so he hit them all with his hammer and made him short. That's how the dwarves were made. Yeah, that's literally one of the things. So, and then basically Morgoth is kind of, he wasn't bad at first, but then he kind of had his own area. Like he left the creation and he's like, I want to do my own thing essentially. And then he was brooding and brooding. And then eventually he became so powerful that, even the gods had problem dealing with him. And then they enlisted the gods enlisted the help of the elves, the first elves. And they were the ones, it's kind of interesting because every single book kind of has its own focus on each race. Like, the Silmarillion in general is focused on the elves because they're the first people. And, the Hobbit, it's a lot about the dwarves, and then Lord of the Rings is all about a combination of each of them, and then the final is about the men, the race of men. And it's really cool how they delve into, like, Sauron, really, he was a foot soldier. He was part of Morgoth's army. And they mention it a few times in Lord of the Rings, but they don't go deep into it, where, they talk about the Balrog, right? And he's like, Gandalf, when he sees a Balrog, he's like, it's a Balrog, servant of Morgoth. And there's, an ancient creature that was brought since early times. And it's really cool. Like, the whole thing, when they always I felt like it was kind of underrated. Like, the elves are kind of, the cool people. I always like the dwarves. Because their whole idea of them, digging deep into the mountain and the whole, mysterious, you don't know what's buried there and all that kind of stuff is, I always thought it was really cool. Because there's, so many things hidden. And the whole thing, it's just, his universe is just amazing how this man created it.
It's the foundation of Western fantasy as a whole.
Yeah, let's be real. Come on, Narnia, relax. Narnia came out after that, but it's completely different. Narnia is basically English folklore, and then Jesus Lion, Aslan, comes and saves the day every movie.
What do you mean? In the second movie, he doesn't even show up until the end. Everyone's like, the conflict's over, and he's like, what's up? I was chilling the entire time.
Bro, let's do it a little bit of an aside on Narnia.
I haven't seen Narnia in even longer.
Listen, I haven't seen Narnia, but literally Aslan is just Jesus.
Jesus doesn't even pull up in the second movie.
Bro, he's basically the embodiment of God and comes in to save the day every time. And that's what they say about the eagles in Lord of the Rings at the end. But it's not the same though.
But the eagles don't show up and kill Sauron halfway through the movie.
Yeah, the eagles are oh yeah, we're just gonna show up. We don't really care about these kind of struggles going on in the world. But then Gandalf's our boy, so we got our boy.
I got you, fam.
Yeah, they're the embodiment. I got you, fam.
Yeah, no. Back to Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. The whole universe is it's really cool.
It's really good. What else was there? There's the 9 rings that were given to man.
Yeah.
It became the Wraiths. Yeah, Sauron. I'm trying to think what else.
There's the 3 given to the elves. So Galadriel has a ring.
Okay.
Yeah. She has one of the rings.
Why is she even corrupted by it then?
That's why she goes nuts, in Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Because she has to maintain, her... It's so powerful. That's why she can, fuck Sauron up, She's so powerful. But, yeah, the whole rings... I want them to make a whole series on just the battle with Sauron.
Okay, so... they're making a new Lord of the Rings TV show with Peter Jackson. You think they're going to go into some of the stuff in that?
So originally, when they're talking about making on Amazon a few years ago,
it's on.
Yeah, I think they're talking about Aragorn's story, about him, and I'm like, okay, Aragorn, he's cool.
Kind of been told.
Yeah, but the whole Ranger thing, I don't know. They're trying to go into his story. They're gonna call it Arathorn. It was about him and his father and stuff, and how the fall of Gondor and all that. But I wish, I hope they make it about pre-Sauron, pre-Ring, struggle leading up, Isildur, the ancient kingdom of the north, right? The men of the north, the kingdom of Angmar before the Witch King. And when men were basically great, before they got wrecked and it was just Gondor.
Yeah.
And then Rohan. Rohan, okay, first of all, Rohan are like the sickest side, sickest side kingdom that's like super poor, but they're actually just riding a bunch of horses and shit.
Yeah, I know. The second movie, man.
Bro, the second movie is so good. Oh my god.
Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep,
Bro, Battle of Five Armies is nothing on Helm's Deep.
No,
I'm just saying.
Bro, the Huarkai, sick. It's just so good. It's so good.
Reads that movie, that cover. Ooh.
Okay, it's for. Okay, we have. Okay, why don't we just. Should we talk about Lord of the Rings today? I don't know. It's kind of.
I gotta see the movies. Is the thing.
Yeah,
I gotta see the movies. But we gotta finish the trilogy, the podcast trilogy, the movies off.
Yeah. So yeah, the lore, the whole lore in Lord of the Rings and the whole universe is really cool. If you're really into that kind of stuff, there's so much written. Like, there's not even theories about it. Like, he literally wrote. Christopher Lee, his son, wrote a book series called The History of Middle-earth. And it's got volumes and volumes of just what happened in Middle-earth, if you want to read about it. And, you know, the thing with me, I'm not big into fantasy reading. And, you know, Tolkien's writing is, it's very mid-century, even before that, where it's like, a sentence will be a page long, you know? 1,000 commas, 1,000 ands, and sometimes it was hard. Like, The Hobbit was easy to read because it was for kids, right? Like, it's a kid's book. Lord of the Rings is so all of his books are so dense with information that it's really hard to maintain, like, actually know what's going on half the time, because there's literally hundreds of characters in a single book. So, you know, if you're into the whole universe, like, just check out those books, you know, find them online. There's so many websites. Bro, you can learn Elvish. First of all, Tolkien created a whole language. Like,
no, got nothing on Klingon.
Yeah, okay. Like, listen, he literally created a whole alphabet, language, multiple languages, actually. You have Elvish, you have Dwarfish, and then you have what they speak in Mordor, or they call it Black Speech, or whatever, something like that. And it's like, I guess I'll just make 3 languages then, like, yeah. But one thing I found really interesting, this is after watching the movies recently, I've been getting into languages a lot more, like learning about the origin of where a lot of our languages come from. And then I started looking at, you know, listening, after watching The Hobbit, listening to the Dwarfish language and, like, the roots of where it comes from, and it's really interesting. He bases off, like, most of the names and stuff are based off of Old English and Norse names, like Thorin and stuff like that, and then there's old names from, like, who's another one? Like, wait, let me think of one that's like an Old English name.
Well, someone starts with a B again. Dwarf.
The dwarf, there's a lot. Bomber.
Yeah,
There's Bomber.
Is that Old English?
I don't know. There. I think that, like, the Gondor people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's, like, I forget.
Gondor's fallen.
Gondor. First of all, the names in Lord of the Rings are just sick. Like,
yeah, Tolkien. I respect. As someone who plays Dungeons & Dragons, I respect him for coming up with good fantasy names. That's hard. That's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, like, where they're not cheesy. I love how he just calls it Mountain of Doom, though.
I know.
That's pretty funny. That's like one of the oldest Lord of the Rings memes. Like, creates a whole language, calls Mountain of Doom.
No, that's the whole thing in Dungeons & Dragons. Whenever you're playing the game, if people are like, man, your fantasy name is so dumb, but the moment you name someone something like John or something like that, you're like, bro, like, you didn't even try with that one.
Bro, you broke the immersion.
You broke my immersion. You didn't even try with that one.
Yeah, overall, yeah, it's a pretty. I mean, there's a reason why it's one of the best selling book series of all time.
It's comprehensive.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's got so many different things, and more than half his work has been released after he's died. I mean, it takes a long time to develop. It took him 20 years to write The Lord of the Rings. Think about 20 years writing a book series. I don't think anyone has put that much work that's been that successful, in recent years.
George R. R. Martin's been working. George R. R. Martin's
but he's
working on his book,
bro. He's been releasing, like, consistent. Like, he just, like,
George R. R. Martin does like 1 chapter a year, and then says he's going to drop the book, and then
then there's
comes out.
Tolkien is like, I'm gonna create a whole universe. I spent 20 years making a whole universe on really 3 books like that. He was on that binge series, you know. He wasn't that episodal. He was already about that. He seemed to the future.
They're never gonna end Song of Ice and Fire, are they?
Never.
Never.
All right.
We should probably end the episode.
Yeah.
here.
So I think that wraps up today's episode, guys. If you guys love Lord of the Rings, you're a big nerd about it like me. You know, they're great movies. Even if you're not, like, we're gonna talk about Lord of the Rings specifically next.
At some point.
Yeah. At some point, we're gonna rewatch them. You know, just get refreshed on what happened.
You rewatch all of them for the episode.
I don't need to, bro. I used to know like all the lines of that movie, like. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Go through the Hobbit movies. Sit through the first one so you can watch the last 2. All right, it should be. I think it's actually on Amazon Prime. So if you got Amazon Prime.
I think you need to rent them.
No, the first 2 are on. First 2 are on Amazon
first
Prime.
2?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we watched it last night.
Oh, okay.
There you go. All right, guys. That's all for today's
That's all
episode.
for today.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.